Hello everybody, my name is Dee and welcome to Books and Quirks. Today is Friday, so it's time for a Friday Reads. I hope you all have some good plans for the weekend, and I plan on getting a lot of reading done as usual, and I've also finished a lot of things. So let me get right into it and tell you about what I've been reading lately and what I've finished. So the first book that I finished was the 9th book in the Alex Ferris series, and that was Marked. And I read this book with Cheryl, who I've been reading the whole series with, of Sierra Flames fan. And yeah, it was so good. The next book, the 10th book, comes out next month on September 24th, so I don't have to wait too long. And we plan on, Cheryl and I plan on jumping right into that one as soon as it comes out. I've spoke about this series a lot so far, so I'm not going to get into it again. Obviously, since the 9th book is part of a series, I'm not going to give you the plot of that, but it is just such a good series, so fast, so fun, and just action-packed, and I absolutely love it. So the next book that I finished, I read as a buddy read with Amber over at Amber Eats Books, and that was Nosferatu by Joe Hill. I said last time that I was going to start reading this, and I loved this book. So this book is a book that came out a few years ago. I've had it on my TBR ever since it first came out, and it's sort of a vampire series, but in a totally different way from what we're used to. So this book follows a couple of characters. So this book follows Charlie Minx, who kind of abducts children, or he does abduct children, and takes them to this fantasy land called Christmas Land. And it's a land that is Christmas all year round. It's in like sort of another universe. It's not in our world. And he's been taking children there, but when children go there, they kind of turn into something else. And we also follow our main character named Vic. When the book starts out, Vic is still a child, so we follow her through into adulthood. Vic has a talent for finding things that are lost. And she has the ability to cross this bridge that will only appear for her. And this bridge will take her to wherever the lost thing is so that she can find it and bring it back home. I don't really know even how to describe this book. When Vic gets older, her child winds up being abducted by Charlie Minx. And she has to find a way to go to Christmas Land and get her child back. I don't really want to ruin anything. I mean, there are other characters in this book, these people that have the ability to kind of see things, like Vic, for example, with the bridge, or Charlie with Christmas Land. It does affect them physically as well. And I mean, this book has really depraved characters. Really, it's kind of along the lines of Stephen King, way back when he wrote books like The Shining and things like that. Such a good book. I definitely recommend it. Very readable, very fast. We started off, Amber and I, at like 50 pages a day, and we wound up moving it to 100 pages a day just because 50 pages flew in like 20 minutes. And it's just so, so good, so complex, I think. And it does kind of end with a bang, I think, in my opinion. If you like horror, I would definitely recommend this novel. If you like, Stephen King, I would definitely recommend this novel. Joe Hill is actually Stephen King's son, but he's very much like his father, I think, in his books. I mean, he definitely has his own voice as well, but definitely a huge fan of Joe Hill. I read The Fireman last year and I absolutely loved it. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, I can't remember, but such a good book, so good. So the next two books that I finished were part of a series, and this is a romance series, and this is the Perfectly Royal series. That's what it's called, and it's by Emma Chase. So the first book is called Perfectly Screwed. I know the title is very crass, but Perfectly Screwed, and the second book is called Perfectly Matched. And this is your typical royal romance, I think. So each of these two books follows two princes, two brothers of this fictional country called Wesco. They are, we follow the older brother in the first book, who is the heir apparent. And in the second book, we follow the younger brother. Now, this book is very much modeled after the British royal family in terms of that their grandmother is the queen, and they also lost their parents at a young age. Um, it's just there's a lot of similarities to the British royalty, but I don't really mind that. I absolutely loved this book. The first book was very much, about the older brother who goes um, to kind of bring his younger brother back, who has been spending time in the States. And we follow Olivia, who owns like a coffee shop in New York City. And they end up at the coffee shop one night after a night of partying, after the shop closes, but she opens up for them. And it starts from there. The second book follows the younger brother, Henry, who sort of goes on this, sort of has a reality TV show of like, kind of The Bachelor, but for royalty. I know it sounds corny, but I actually thought these books were really sweet. There is a steamy romance as well, but that's to be expected. Anyway, I really enjoyed these two books, and definitely recommend it for the romance fans out there. But it's your typical royal romance, I think, in each book with a little bit of a twist. So those were the 4 books that I finished. Now I'm going to tell you about the books that I'm going to be reading this weekend. So the first book that I want to get into this weekend is The Winter Sea by Susanna Kearsley. I read during the spring my first Susanna Kearsley book, and that was The Rose Garden. I absolutely loved it. It had, romance, it had time travel. It was just a lot of fun, and I read it for the Reading Through the Ages year-long readathon, and it checked off one of the boxes. So this is the other Susanna Kearsley book that I have, and I really want to get into it. This takes place in 1708, I believe, and yes, in the spring of 1708, Scotland. So I will tell you more about this book once I get into it, but I'll know I love it. I mean, if it's anything like the writing in The Rose Garden, I will absolutely love this book. It's quite thick, so I don't know how long it will take me to get through it, or maybe it'll be a fast read like the first Susanna Kearsley I've read. It's about 530 pages, it looks like. Yeah, a little over 530 pages. So I will get into this weekend. The next book that I'll be reading this weekend is another romance, and I just love reading romance in the summer, so I think I'm sort of picking up my romance game a little bit, and that is Gentleman 9 by Penelope Ward. So Gentleman 9 is a book, it's sort of a friends to romance type book. It follows 2 main characters, and I forget the male character's name, but the female is Amber, I believe, and they have been friends since childhood, and they continue to remain friends into adulthood, and I believe after a breakup, he stays with her for a while, and it goes from there. So I'll tell you more about this book once I finish it as well, but that's the main gist of it, of how the romance begins. I don't know what other kind of things will come up in the book, but I'm really excited to get into this because I love Penelope Ward. I actually read another book by her a while back, and I absolutely loved it. So if it's anything like that, I know that I will love this book. I also might read the 3rd book in the Royally series, the Perfect Royally series, I think it's called, and that is by Emma Chase. And the 3rd book is called Perfectly Endowed, and I will probably get into that as well because I really enjoyed the first 2 books, like I said earlier, so I think I want to continue on with that series and just finish it out. I'm not sure if there are just 3 books or if there's a 4th in there somewhere, but I will just continue on with that. So that is really all I have for you for my reading for this weekend. It's going to be a big romance, I think, filled weekend, and I think that's okay. It's just, light and fluffy and just what I need to relax. And that is all I have for you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you all very, very soon.